Attack on Titan is finally over for real. No more the final season part 3, the final chapters, movie 1, chapter 2. The story has concluded and today we are breaking down and explaining the final special. As somebody who read the manga ending about 2 years ago, I wanted to make a video explaining everything we just saw in the anime finale since I've had some time to unpack it all over the last couple years. Massive spoilers ahead. Please do not watch this video if you haven't already seen the finale. Final spoiler warning before we break down the 10 things I plan to explain, plus 3 scenes that have changed from the original manga. Spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Let's do this. Number 1, Ymir freeing the pigs. The first twist or revelation of the finale is that Ymir did free the pigs over 2,000 years ago. Originally, we saw the villagers pointing at her, blaming her, leading us to believe that this was a damning statement on her society, that these grown adults would blame a child to save themselves. Here we learn that actually she did free the pigs and that this is an attempt to show us that she and Eren are actually very similar. We learn she has the same obsession with carrying out Eren's mission and is responsible for the resistance that the allies like Armin, Mikasa, Reiner, and the others face in the form of the ancient Titan shifters during this final battle. After all, Eren invited them to come. He said he wouldn't stop them from moving forward, so all of the resistance in that final epic battle, that was Ymir's doing. Number 2, the Cart Titan's true ability finally revealed. On the grand scheme of revelations and things to talk about in this finale, this one isn't massive, but we get one last true power reveal when we discover Peak's Cart Titan has the ability to respawn hundreds of times compared to every other Titan shifter that gets max 2 or 3 shifts in a row. The Cart Titan has had its endurance called out in the past, with characters mentioning she can stay in the Titan form for way longer than others, but now we saw in this battle she can pop in and out of Titan form hundreds of times. Number 3, Levi's final thoughts on the controversial Erwin versus Armin Titan serum debate. Midway through the battle, Levi reflects on his old comrades, acknowledges his injuries, and wonders what he's even doing here at the final showdown. Thinking about Erwin and the Titan serum that could have saved him or Armin, he says, quote, "I didn't choose you and I have no regrets about that because I entrusted the future to that kid who had the same look in his eyes as all of you," referring to Armin. In Erwin's final battle, when he sent his soldiers to die, he became a devil, frankly long before Eren did. Armin never believed in that whole "we must become our own devils" philosophy that Erwin and Eren fell into, and he maintained a purity and hope that Levi saw and decided back in season 3 was what would save humanity ultimately. So hopefully fans can put the debate to rest over who should have been revived, since Levi himself said he had no regrets about choosing Armin. 4, the first life form and the meaning of life. We're shown more of that primordial life form that latched onto Ymir in the water underneath the tree 2,000 years ago. Its design is loosely based on hallucigenia, an ancient life form from roughly 500 million years ago. And of course it resembles a spinal cord and the millipede-like Titan form that Eren settled into after acquiring the Founder's powers. In an incredible scene taking place in the paths, Zeke and Armin debate the meaning of life. Zeke maintains a very literal and biological approach, saying the purpose of life is to multiply. This may be why Ymir keeps creating Eldians and Titans, is because she's trying to continue her reason for being, to live and to multiply. Armin shares his thoughts on the meaning of life and refers back to a day where Eren, Mikasa, and himself were racing towards the tree on top of the hill back when they were kids, the breeze pushing on them, the gorgeous leaves flying through the air. On that day, in that bliss, Armin wondered if maybe the reason he was born was so the 3 of them could run on that day. He felt the same later when reading a book on a rainy day, when walking around the market in Marley with his friends. It's this idea that these trivial moments could be so precious despite having nothing to do or contribute to multiplying or continuing the species. In the paths, Armin holds up a leaf which to Zeke looks like the baseball he used when playing catch with his mentor and proxy father figure, Mr. Cassette. Zeke eventually comes to believe Armin and says, "That simple repetition, catching and throwing, it doesn't mean anything, but you're right. I would have been happy playing catch forever." Again, throwing a ball does not contribute to growing the species, but brought about joy in Zeke's life, one of the only joys in his life. Number 5, Zeke versus Levi rematch round 4 or 5. Zeke eventually appears on Eren's back out of his own free will, kind of teasing Levi to guarantee his attention. He comments on what a beautiful day it is and wishing he could have seen nature for what it was sooner before abruptly having his head sliced off by Levi. Levi has completed Erwin's final command all these years later, and because Zeke, who carried the royal blood that was necessary for Eren to control the Titans, is now dead, Eren suddenly loses control of the Titans and the rumbling abruptly stops. And number 6, Mikasa's vision. Eren can show Eldians visions using the power of the Founding Titan. This world Mikasa finds herself in, with a slightly older Eren chopping wood outside their cabin. This is not some kind of alternate timeline or multiverse situation, but is just a vision Eren created to show Mikasa a peaceful life. And the last time they spoke face to face in real life, he called her a slave and said he despised her. So this vision is sort of his final act of kindness to her, giving her a final memory of him that is not him berating her. He also tells Mikasa to forget about him when he's gone. Whether or not she can ever do that, he can't know, but this is what he wants to tell her with their last moment together. Number 7, this is a big one, Eren and Armin's final scene. This scene changed the most from anything else in the finale, and I will go over the changes in just a bit after we get through breaking down the scene we did get in the anime. Just like Mikasa's vision, this isn't a real trip across the world that happened. Eren brought Armin into a vision just for the two of them. Eren explains his plan to Armin and to the audience finally that he would become a devil, and that when his old friends stopped him and stood on the side of humanity, his friends would become the most respected people in the world. Armin comments that this is very similar to the story of the Tiber family ending the Great Titan War by having an Eldian, Helos, kill the devil of all Earth. We've been wondering why Ymir was so loyal to the king for all this time, and Eren proposes that she obeyed him because of love. For 2,000 years, she sought someone who'd release her from the agony of love. Then that someone appeared, Mikasa. So for me, 2 years after reading the manga finale, I'll admit this is the toughest element of the finale for me to defend and explain. Personally, I don't hate it, but it's a bit challenging. There's so much weirdness going on here with things like Stockholm Syndrome and things of that nature. But my best assessment of what Isayama is trying to say is that love is complex and irrational, and that it's also the root of suffering, of war. The fear of loss, of losing loved ones, drives people towards hating others who would take away their love. It turns us into devils. People throughout history take up arms to protect the people they love and do unspeakable things to ensure their love's safety. There's no pain without love, no hate without love. I think that's what Isayama was trying to get at with this 11th hour she was bound by love revelation. So then Mikasa is the perfect demonstration for Ymir of a person conquering a complex love to do the right thing when she beheaded Eren. Ymir waited 2,000 years for someone to show her that she could separate from the twisted, toxic love that was keeping her tied to the mortal world. And so when she sees Mikasa let go of Eren, she is able to let go of the Eldian dynasty and therefore end the curse of the Titans. Number 8, pathetic Eren. This is a scene many manga readers ridiculed and took issue with, and I often felt very weird about their hatred of this scene. In the scene, moments before death, literally drenched in the consequences of his actions, Eren falls to the ground and begins weeping about Mikasa, confessing to his oldest friend Armin that he wishes to be the only man she thinks about and that she won't move on from him, at least not for a decade. It's a total temper tantrum from a child. Armin even calls him pathetic, but keep in mind, moments before the scene, he told Armin his head is all messed up and the Founder's power has made it so that there is no past or future, it all exists at once. Eren is a child, an adult, 5 years old, 19 years old, and 2,000 years old all at once. I have no issue believing that Eren's brain is utterly broken at this point, and he's confessing his most embarrassing, most selfish wishes to his best friend moments before he dies. I think the people who really protest this scene truly believed Eren Yeager was just meant to be this like uber alpha male badass, and so they were upset to see Isayama explicitly state that this character is a monster and a child, and none of this is new. If you've been watching the show closely since season 1, you've always seen Eren this way, so I have no issue with this scene. Number 9, humans or Titans. We exit the Armin and Eren vision scene and return to the battlefield to discover all of the mindless Titans created earlier in the battle have been turned back into normal humans. Ymir has severed ties to the mortal world after seeing Mikasa sever, well, Eren's head, and so she took the power of the Titans with her. John, Connie, Gabby, and the others we saw become Titans are back to normal, and the Titan shifters like Reiner, Armin, and Annie no longer have the ability to become Titans. In a brilliant roundabout way, Eren did what he vowed to do all the way back in season 1. He rid the world of Titans. Some of the Marlians point their guns at the now helpless Eldians and ask how they can trust that they aren't going to turn into Titans and kill them. Armin lays down his weapon, says he is the man that killed Eren Yeager, and says the fact that him and his comrades aren't turning into Titans right now to fight back is the greatest sign of their humanity. This scene is brilliant because of two important callbacks. One, Armin pretending to be the man who killed Eren is reminiscent of the Helos legend. Nobody knows if that person even existed, but it was important for humanity to be able to have a figure to identify as the hero that slayed the Earth Devil. The world needs a hero, and Armin decides he can be that. The second reason this scene is brilliant is because it draws a direct parallel to the scene shortly after Eren's first transformation in season 1, when Eren, Mikasa, and Armin had dozens of military personnel pointing guns at them and asking them to prove right then and there that they were on the side of humanity and not Titans. In both situations, it was Armin that talked his way out of certain death. Number 10, the time skips. Our first time skip is 3 years later. The nation of Eldia has a new army controlled by the Jaegerists who, fearing retaliation from what is left of the outside world, are building up their defenses and growing their numbers. This is an incredibly dark end for the island of Paradis that I kind of love. Eren and even Floch have probably become martyrs to these people. The Jaegerists that worshipped Eren never got to see him crying in a pool of blood, being an absolute child the way Armin saw. We learn that Armin, Annie, Reiner, and the others, minus Mikasa, have become ambassadors for peace among the allied nations, and that they're sailing on a boat as we speak to Paradis for a peace diplomacy mission. Mikasa has been living back on Paradis. A bird flies out and tugs on her scarf, which is a beautiful image in my opinion. Wings have always been synonymous with freedom and AOT. I can't believe I even have to say this, but to be super clear, Eren was not reincarnated as a bird. This was the subject of ridicule by some folks who didn't like the ending of the manga. Really what's happening, it's this cosmic coincidence that a free bird tugged on Mikasa's scarf and it reminded her of the times that Eren wrapped her scarf around her. Then during the credits, we get another time skip that was originally not in the manga that released on day 1, but was added to the manga volume collection. Mikasa visiting the gravesite under the tree, reality. Time passes, she has a family, the island is becoming industrialized rapidly with skyscrapers appearing in the background, even futuristic looking ones eventually. We're shown an elderly woman lying on a bed of flowers wearing Mikasa's scarf, leading you to believe that Mikasa dies of old age at some point in the future. Eventually we see that technological society that developed behind the tree blown to bits in an unknown conflict. Another dark twist here at the end. Isayama's story was about ending the Titan conflict, the Eldia versus Marley conflict, but Isayama never claimed he would offer an answer to all violence or all war. Whether this destruction that took out Parody was late Marley retaliation, or was another nation having a different conflict with Parody, or hell, even Parody blowing themselves to bits with a failed nuclear test or a civil war or something like that. Although Titans are gone, Isayama maintains that hatred and war are sadly not going anywhere. Then, even later, a child and a dog hike through the wreckage up to the impossibly tall tree, which seems to have an entry point on the ground level. It's of course reminiscent of Ymir falling into the tree over 2,000 years ago and bonding with a primordial life form that created the Titan lineage. The kid is also wearing something resembling Mikasa's scarf. Whether or not we choose to believe Mikasa is this kid's ancestor, it's an open ending with Isayama suggesting all of this is cyclical, humans never learning from our sins and failures. So that is everything from the finale I felt deserved to be explained and clarified. Now I'd like to touch on a few of the changes from the manga. There's only really one large change and two minor changes, so I'll talk about those now. The scene of Armin and Eren talking and they say their final words to each other was expanded quite significantly for the anime. Some lines were added and one key line seems to have been removed. Importantly, the anime version left out a controversial line where Armin says to Eren, "Thank you for turning yourself into a mass murderer for our sake." Granted, right after this, Armin says something to the effect of, "I swear I won't let this grave mistake be for nothing," clarifying that he disavows and disagrees with Eren's choice, but the whole "thanks for murdering 80% of the world" line, and it coming from Armin, it didn't sit right with a lot of readers. Here, they cleaned up the dialogue and just cut that line altogether. Instead, they added Armin saying he feels equally responsible for Eren's actions as he was the one who showed him that book of Earth all those years ago, and Armin also says that they'll meet again in hell. One other thing that was left out that surprised me was an important clarification with Eren's plan. We learned here that Eren expected his old allies to stop him and become heroes in the process, but in the manga, Eren confesses that, quote, "Even if I didn't know you'd stop me, I think I still would have flattened the earth. I wanted to leave every surface a blank plane." So Eren's plan basically had a backup. He was equally happy with Armin and the others failing and letting his rumbling wipe out 100% of humanity. Either Armin and the others stop him and they become heroes, or they fail and he wipes out all of humanity outside the walls. Either way, Eren would have quote unquote won by securing a safe future for Eldians. Finally, in this scene, they added a few lines about Eren being an idiot and a child and not knowing why he did what he did. I guess this was as a means for Isayama to say as clearly as possible to the real world readers who think Eren is this badass poster child that this character was wrong. I think he really doesn't want people to like worship Eren. No real world Jaegerists. Shifting scenes in the time skip when Armin, Annie, and the others are on the boat discussing whether the people of Parody will listen to them or shoot their ship down, the manga contains an important line about why they think they'll be safe and listened to. It's mentioned that Queen Historia's earliest orders after the Battle of Heaven and Earth were to protect Connie's mother and Jean's family. This adds to the reasoning why the Allies thought they had a chance for peace talks with Historia and Eldian leadership, and they weren't just sailing into their execution. One final change which caught me by surprise, in the time skip in the anime, Levi is living with Onyankopon and Yelena, while Gabby and Falco are working on some kind of farm. This is all fine, but it's slightly different in the manga. In Isayama's original version, we see Levi with Gabby, Falco, and Onyankopon in a city that I kind of thought looked like the AOT equivalent of London, England. I'm curious why this changed, if Isayama requested the change or Mappa made the call, and I wonder what their reasoning was. Ultimately, not a big deal though. That is going to do it for my Attack on Titan finale coverage. This was a series that was very, very close to my heart. Thanks so much for watching. Next week, I'll be reviewing the brand new Digimon Adventure 02 movie called The Beginning. Subscribe if you enjoyed this, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.